Hello, everybody. Welcome to everybody. You wouldn't know this, but it's been a while since we've all met up. So we've had a good old chin wag. Welcome to another paranormal case file today, where we do one that we're all very familiar with, and I'm sure a lot of you probably out there are watching are very familiar with, which is the Bluebell Hill ghosts. And all the evidence. So today we're going to do a case file. We are joined by the wonderful Paranormal Inspectres team. And yeah, hi everybody.
Hi, hello.
So it's kind of hard in this one because we're probably going to talk quite matter-of-factly. And most of you actually out there will probably know about this one. So we will talk as if you were fairly well versed on this. If not, go down on the paranormal playlist and you will see that, especially on this channel, we've covered lots and lots and lots of different bits of so-called evidence on the Bluebell Hill ghost. Yeah, and if you hear some random squeaking and stuff in the background, there's a new addition to the Paranormal Inspectors family, which is a beautiful little dog, which Sophie in the background is also playing with, just in context, because I know some of you like to sort of complain about random spectral noises in the background. It's just a dog, all right, and Sophie separately. That was a joke, it's fine. Right, hello everybody. So Bluebell Hill, which we're all very invested in.
Where do you want to start?
Yeah, this is a question.
Do you want to start with the most common one?
Let's do what I refer to as the two most common ones, which is the Bluebell Hill Bride, and then obviously Emily Trigg, which we've talked about, which is the hitchhiker or the phantom hitchhiker. Now I'm gonna drop myself into this just in case, because obviously this is where we're trying to sort of like lay of the land on this. So historical context, we assume that the Bluebell Hill Bride is obviously the famous incident of the women who were on their one of them was on their way to get married. Let's just sort of talk about it in loose conversation. And then there was an accident. Unfortunately, one of them survived, but how many of them? I can't remember now. Three passed away. Now, again, we're very well aware that in certain instances of things that we're talking about, some people might still be alive on this, and we want to show absolute respect. This is a case file, which is unloading the evidence on everybody. And in terms of the hitchhiker, we are talking about Emily Trigg, or it's supposed to be the phantom hitchhiker. It's supposed to be that.
Is she?
Well, this is it, isn't it? So I've always assumed, and through other people and stories, that Emily Trigg might be the best candidate. But we will discuss this because I know obviously that there is different evidence that can suggest otherwise. Yeah. And actually the same with the Bluebell Hill Bride as well. And yes, so where should we start with those? Let's start with those two common ones and then we can work our way from that.
Go for it, Joe. Let's get the bride thing out of the way. So 4 ladies were in a car the night before the wedding of the lady that was driving the car. They had not been drinking, they had not been on a hen night, they had actually been to the church hall, sorting out flowers and, you know, the things that you have to do before a wedding. And they were travelling back and they had a collision with a Jaguar coming in the opposite direction. No evidence of anybody drinking, although there weren't any constraints at that time. And one of the ladies was killed outright. She wasn't the bride. One lady survived, although she was badly injured and spent, I believe it was 4 months in hospital. Another lady, Pat Ferguson, died on admission to hospital. The actual bride died 5 days later. So there's no reason to believe that the ghost is the bride.
Because in paranormal law, the law states that they would have to have died suddenly and instantaneously for an occurrence like that, in terms of a spectral being that would normally be visited quite constantly because they don't realise that they're dead. In a paranormal law sense, we can use that as a type of argument on that, which gets debunked straight away because the bride didn't die instantaneously and outright. Again, we're very respectful of the people that may be alive in this, and we're just, like I said, we're talking on paranormal sense here. So that you can eliminate straight away, because actually the person that you would expect to see should be the bride, because they died through traumatic. They don't realise that they're dead. They're still searching, etc., etc. So they're not. So we can eliminate that straight away.
Yeah.
Okay, let's carry on.
And there's something else I want to pitch in, which I think we'll come to later, which I mentioned earlier, is that she has been spotted. The bride has been spotted, but she wasn't wearing a bridal outfit, was she?
No.
So how can people spot a bride?
Yeah.
And determine that person as a bride if she wasn't dressed as a bride?
We have a theory for that.
I know. I'm just putting that in there.
Yeah.
Just to come back to what you were saying about paranormal law, I tend to agree with you for the most part, but there's also an argument that says the spirit may return.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
She passed away in hospital. The net cause was at the site.
Yes.
You're absolutely right on that. Yeah.
And the subject. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to sometimes, like I said, you're absolutely right on that, because we do have to talk in sort of layman's terms to a lot of people, because we were aware that there were people who are watching this who are very invested in this type of stuff, and then there might be people who are very curious and sort of not. And so, like, you're absolutely right. There's two types, I suppose, then. One which is obviously based on trauma. If they died straight away, they're trying to search for themselves. A very famous story, as I've sort of mentioned on this channel before, was the Ghost of Heim, which is a German pilot who stands by the side of the road where his plane crashed, doesn't realise he's dead, so he just stands there. And then you do get visitations of actual people who, well, like, who don't necessarily have died in the property, but return back to the property or return back to the scene or wherever it works.
I think the argument would be that the trauma was of such gravity that they can't move on.
Yeah.
So they go back to where they happen to try and
The
resolve it.
memories.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It depends also on the circumstance. I mean, obviously, we're talking about hitchhiker ghosts as well. Most of the time in law, we talk about hitchhiker ghosts because they don't necessarily realise that they're passed on, so they're trying to hitchhike to where they need to go to, or they're not aware that they've died, so that in their mind they're still carrying on in their journey. I suppose. But yeah, absolutely right on that. So, with that,
So there are many stories about the hitchhiker. We can't explain the hitchhiker, but we can say that the stories of drivers being asked to go to a certain address, to knock on the door, and then to be told by the parents that it's their daughter who passed away. We can't find any evidence whatsoever of that happening. So we're back to the Chinese whispers and the folklore and the embroidering the stories.
Yeah. So we know that we know anyway. Let's rewind a little bit with this. We know that Bluebell Hill is quite a important, or especially was quite an important arterial road at one point. Obviously, then it got taken over and got readjusted as time went on. But the hill itself is quite a main focal point for the fact that obviously it's surrounded by important megalithic sites. And it also was the rumour to be one of the most bloodiest battles in Kent's early history. But believe that where you will, because I'm still not 100% convinced on the exact idea of where that could be, etc., etc. And we're not talking about the Battle of Medway, which was where the Romans and the ancient Britons had their massive fight, because there's a stone that is supposedly meant to mark where that is. That stone again isn't proved. They just thought that that's actually a little junction as to where they thought it could cross over, where the Romans crossed over to fight the ancient Britons, or Celts as some of you will refer to them as. So yes, there's a lot of history that surrounds it. The undeniable fact is, however, is that there is a lot of megalithic sites there, and it is definitely important.
And there is the BBC transmitter.
Absolutely.
And there are pylons there.
Yeah.
So that's all adding to
yeah.
the energy
And it's chalk.
It's
chalk there as well.
Yeah.
I mean, and obviously, so there's a lot going on there that could encourage or highlight more activity.
There is also the fact that it was a main thoroughfare.
Yeah.
In times past.
Yeah.
And that it has its own micro environment.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of fog up there, there's lots of low cloud, and there's lots of bad weather.
Yeah.
And in the dark, it can affect what you're seeing properly.
Yeah. And actually, not too far away on the viewpoint, there is a dedication to the ambulance, air ambulance that
That's
has
right.
crashed
Right, yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
There as well. So, if you want to put that in the background as a case for evidence as to why it could be more haunted than most places, you've got a good accumulation of things in a paranormal law sense again that could help justify that. So yeah.
There's also in modern terms there's an appalling mobile phone signal black spot, more or less parallel to the site of the crash. So for a couple of 100 meters, the phone signal's just rubbish.
Yeah, that's true. It cuts out. Is it because there's two different?
I don't know the technology behind it. It's just bad signal, which you don't expect on a major thoroughfare, but it exists. So it's just another part of the mix, isn't it?
Yeah. And because it's been such an ancient sort of thoroughfare, let's just sort of say, that obviously encourages more stories and more rumours. And
more fact.
More fact as well.
There's
and we're
quite a lot of fact.
The other thing that for modern people wouldn't understand is that there are two significant, there's three technically, I suppose. You've got the Robin Hood, you've got what was the Upper Bell pub, which isn't there anymore. The Robin Hood, I'm assuming, is still going, or that makes me, I'm so bizarre how that pub still manages to go. For people who don't know, the Robin Hood pub is literally in the middle of nowhere, but standing on top of Liverpool Hill. And then you've got the Lower Bell pub. And again, I've always been a big believer in pub talk, communication between people, sharing stories, etc., etc. That you've literally got an accumulation of three interesting pubs on the main section of that.
Upper Bell and the Lower Bell would have been very much connected, because the road is so narrow that they would ring the bell at one end to warn the people at the other end that the road was clear, and then they'd ring the bell at the bottom end to say that it was clear for anybody else to use it.
And more importantly as well was that during that period of time, even earlier than that, it was actually quite an important place for quarrying of chalk as well. Actually, I've seen some really interesting photos back in the day of like some lime kilns and actual people working around there. So again, very important sort of section. And for people in context, it's actually the hill that divides Medway from Maidstone.
Yes.
Really, if you don't know where it is, it's basically got Maidstone at the bottom of the hill. And as you walk your way up, if you carry on up Bluebell Hill, you're basically at the top of Rochester, going back down into Medway town. So it's an important sort of section of road, really. Okay, so now we've put all that into context and we sort of discussed the two sort of main ones that most people would sort of know. I want to sort of like bring it round a little bit. So Emily Trigg was the one that I put on my channel, which was the most common one that most people would associate would have been the hitchhiker. Now, I think we'll agree that that might not be the case, that it was her. No, although it's still a fascinating story as to her murder. What do you think primarily are the most interesting facts that you've come up with that justify, on top of this, the paranormal evidence?
Justify the paranormal.
Yeah.
Well, we've scratched around and tried to take out some of the anomalies.
Yeah.
And we've discovered that quite a lot of the reports have happened around the same time as the ceremonies for the Druids and the pagans.
Okay, yeah.
With the site with Kit's Coty. There are lots of things that have happened there. There's lots and lots of things, and we've got pages and pages of dates.
But you've had to dig through that, though, haven't you? I mean, what's interesting
forever.
about this is that Sue's like properly. There's a lot of stuff that Sue's uncovered which isn't common knowledge for a lot of people, which makes it more interesting.
It does, yeah.
Because actually, what you've done is actually just sort of taken away the common layer of what most people would understand as the paranormal aspect or the spiritual sort of aspect. And actually, once you've dug in, I mean, there's some fascinating articles that you've sort of found within that. What's one that's really made you all quite shocked and surprised? Is there anything that you've sort of looked at and gone, actually?
There is the lady that they call the witch.
Yes, or the hag. Or
the hag or the crone or whatever it is. And what we've discovered is that there is a lady that was eccentric, and her name was Elsie Apps Grigg. She would dye her hair red, it was very long. She'd wear a really old scruffy hat, and she'd wear a big scarf, and she would wear a big fur coat or of some kind, and she would make her way down to the flower pot at top of Week Street, and then she would walk through the fields and come home. And she was very eccentric. She would collect porcelain and put it into her garden. including a toilet seat for whatever reason. So you can get the level of what's gone on there. But she was once seen dancing around the stones late at night in very few clothes. And she caught pneumonia and she died in 1955.
Right. Oh, okay.
However,
Yep.
lots of people have made reports on seeing that image since. And it's not just the next generation that would have perhaps carried the stories on, it's the generation after that you would have more distance from that story. So that one is a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, she's our candidate for the hag
Yeah.
She seems to be the most obvious because she was very eccentric. She did used to run around Kit's Cozy House in her nightdress, you know, things like this, shouting at little boys and
on the chalk pits.
things like that. Interestingly, her house was built over, is it Sarsen stones?
Oh,
there you go. Yeah. Because I think the misconception with that is potentially that I think from people who know the law about Bluebell Hill is that actually the hag should be, people would assume that she's a lot older, that the room or the history behind her is a lot older than what it is, you know, between that. And I think that that's really something that we need to sort of take into consideration. Actually, she's actually more modern than we probably take her for granted for, really, on that. Anything else?
Well, there is a very, very sad story of a lady called Emmeline King. And she lived right at the top of the hill.
Victoria Road.
She was absolutely terrified. I mean, this is within living memory. She was absolutely terrified of the ball stall and the boys coming out of the ball stall. She would lock herself away. She would barricade herself in her house because she had this fear of the ball stall boys. She had lots of cats, and one of her cats apparently knocked over an oil stove, and the house caught fire and she burned to death. That's a little known story, but it is historical fact.
And that was 1951.
1951.
Wow.
And this would have been where the roundabout at Junction 4 is, I believe, around that area. So there's her. She was known as a witch because she used to shut herself away. You know, she was. She was just an oddball, an unusual person. So yeah, there are lots and lots of stories.
I mean, what are your? You know, we'll come back to some more detail in a minute. But actually, I'm just curious as everybody. What do you believe? Let's just put the big question out. Do you believe Bluebell Hill is haunted?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. Everybody or not?
Well, because we have a witness.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well. Yeah.
Yeah, I was. I believe I have seen. Well, I believe I've seen the ghost there. This was the early 90s, and I was in a vehicle with two other guys, and we were taking a shortcut from Aylesford through the farm, which is on the left-hand side as you go up by the golf course. I shouldn't have been there. I apologise in advance to the farmer, but it was one of those things. So we were driving along the farm track, heading towards what is now the modern Bluebell Hill. It was in the afternoon. It was a bright day, no rain, no fog, sunshine. And as we were trundling across the track, walking towards us was a girl, mid to late teens, classically Victorian in her dress, long dress, boots, shawl around her shoulders, dark hair. And as we got close to her, we could see her face, and her eyes were black, as if they weren't there. In fact, the eye socket was black. So we all looked at her as you would do, and as we slowly drove past her, we looked over our shoulders in the direction she was walking, and she was gone. So
did you all look around at the same time?
Yes, we looked at the same time.
So you all saw it and all looked around at the same time?
It was classic sketch, you know, everybody's like, what?
Yeah.
So she was out of eye line for a matter of a second whilst we turned our heads, and bearing, yes, we're looking across the back of the vehicle, so there's all bits of seat and glass and things in the way, but, and she was gone, absolutely gone, and there was no possible way she had run and hidden. It's just open field.
Open field, yeah.
So
So who would that be within the context of the story?
Well, that sounds like Emily Trigg to me.
that's, yes, having read
Yeah.
these notes, that's as close as I could get. The location isn't quite right, but Sue's got a comment on that in a moment, perhaps. It was a fleeting glimpse, then she was gone, but it was 30 years plus ago, and I still remember it as if it was yesterday. And it was validated with two other blokes who I'm no longer in contact with, but we were all there, we all saw the same thing. We hadn't been to the pub. It was, it was really odd at the time, and then over the years, and I've got an interest in the paranormal, and it stayed with me. So it's quite interesting for me to hear this stuff because it fits.
And then of course we've got the bride story, which you've got us something to say about that.
Yeah, well, it's about the Druid ceremonies again, and there is somebody that has reported seeing a bride in full bridal attire, short, stocky, and looked like a bloke, is a quote. And Druids very often have that kind of
Attire.
Yeah. So and it's all around the dates of the ceremonies. I think that's just really interesting. And the hag is very often around the beginning of January, when you've got the three goddess ceremony, which is the maiden, the mother, and the hag or the crone. But in 1981, Sharon Berry was knocked down by a doctor and killed on the road. And there is stories of her being seen. And it says here that she's often described as wearing old-fashioned clothing with pale, sorrowful expression. And she's said to just suddenly appear in the middle of the road, causing drivers to swerve or brake. Now, it's not that this one person that said it.
No.
And there was a lady that was running a cafe for many years at the top of the hill, and she's got lots of lorry drivers that have seen similar things. So you can't say there isn't something when lots of people have seen it. But there are lots of things that we can say, actually, I don't think that's quite right. And some really awful things. There is a guy that was on a traction engine in 1894, and he was coming down the hill and the traction engine turned over and he was caught underneath it. And they lifted it with ropes to get him out, and the ropes broke and it crushed him to death. And you would think that maybe that might be a ghost, you know, that with your law, you think that might be a ghost. And I think that's where we're coming from. You know, if there is all of these awful things, there was a film star that was killed in a car crash at the bottom of the hill. And his passenger was the daughter of a Lord Ponsonby. And all of the reports on the newspapers was how wonderfully she had escaped this terrible thing, and nothing about the poor man that died.
So this is really what I wanted to ask all of you, and it's actually the main question of today, because I actually genuinely think that, you know, because we're all very familiar with it, we're all local to Bluebell Hill, all of us have driven up it numerous times. This is the big question I want to ask, and actually this is something that maybe people out there in the comments might be interested in. Why is it, the question is, why is it that we only know so much about these certain stories? Like, we know, most people know about the Phantom Hitchhiker, most people know about the Ghost of Bluebell Hill, the Bride, and we know some of you, most of us, might know about the Hag, for example, but there's so much more that plays into that. So why is it that we don't, is basically what I'm asking.
Because
really.
It's
media.
It's media. It's not just a ghost, it's a bride, so that makes it that much.
Sensationalised.
It's sensationalised. There's so much to happen there, and we have to keep reminding ourselves when we're digging through this stuff, and we're thinking, well, why does that happen there? Why does that happen there? you have to remember that road wasn't there.
No.
And people made their journeys as the crow flies. They
Across fields.
Yeah. So to them, the road wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
It's just a field.
And we've also discovered that with there being no internet, with there being perhaps no telephones, and it was just down to reporters of newspapers. They would say whatever would sell the paper.
Yeah.
And some people would say there's 3 people in that car. Some people would say there's 4.
Yeah.
And some people say this one died, that one died.
And you know what happens with gossip.
It's Chinese whispers, and it becomes folklore. And 1965 is a fair amount of time away now, and it's just a story, and it's very sad because there are people involved in that. And for some of the other stories that we've got here that are never mentioned, is it because people didn't read the newspapers, or is it because they didn't have access to the records, so they only got to hear what they got to hear?
Yeah.
Or maybe that particular incident wasn't gossip worthy
No.
in the day.
I think again it goes down to stories within stories, doesn't it? How can we make this more sort of appealing to people? Oh well, we'll talk about the bride. Do you know what I mean? We'll create a story within a story. It's
But there is the flaw we've already identified with that, which is she would never have, if it was the ghost of the bride, she would never have been dressed as a bride, so wouldn't have been recognised as a bride.
But this is it, it's that media side, isn't it? It's like, how can we create this, make this more appealing to people? So we have to sort of like put a dress on, you know what I mean? And then it dilutes into people who've genuinely, like you said, genuinely seen experiences that then, which, you know, where are we sort of putting that into the context of people who have passed away? Where are we doing that?
Well, Harry Price once said, people don't want the debunking, they want the bunk.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of sums it all up, really, because people want the story, they want the mystery, they want the horror, and not the truth.
Well, it's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so. People like to have the exciting stories to tell.
It's the hook that makes you read.
Look at the M25. People die on that every day.
Yeah.
Figuratively speaking.
Yeah.
And it's tragic and terrible for the people involved and their families. But actually, who cares? It's just not an interesting thing because it happens that frequently.
Because
we're desensitised.
That's
We are
right.
desensitised.
We are desensitised.
Whereas a car full of women, one of them's getting married, it suddenly got some substance to it.
And
it
also-
makes a bit of a story.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing to think of is what else was going on in the news around that time.
Yeah.
It could be a really tragic car crash, but if something big is happening on a national or global scale that is being reported, it's just going to be absorbed into the newspaper, isn't it?
Also, another aspect of that is that there happened to be on a bus that arrived on the scene very shortly after the crash. There happened to be a photographer from one of the Kent newspapers, and he actually took photographs. So you think he's sending his copy back. Oh, this is someone that's getting married, and it's
I've got a
sensational.
photograph.
Almost every article we read is incorrect in some way or another.
Yeah.
They've got the names round the wrong way.
Yeah.
They've got
The location.
Even the site of the crash isn't correct.
Yeah.
And it's confusing.
But the ones where they've reported picking up people and them being in their car. We've got one report here of somebody that actually stopped the car with his partner in the car as well, and he took her bag and put it into the boot and put that person in. And that person disappeared, and
Is there any, so that particular story then, so what happened to the bag? Do we know?
Well, that's a question, isn't it? Because apparently nothing's been mentioned of it.
Or was it was obviously physically manifested that he could pick it up?
He said that
So
he touched her and she was not cold as he helped her into the car. That's the only thing.
I've read so many hitchhiker stories that really interest me on those, because you hear people, like, for example, there was that famous episode on Strange But True, for example, with the Phantom Hitchhiker story in South Africa, and there's a bloke who's riding his motorbike, and this woman physically puts the helmet on. He sees her and he's right behind. He even puts an earphone into her so she can listen to music. Gets to the town where she needs to be dropped off. The earphone's melted a little bit, and the helmet's back on the seat. So how does like, you're absolutely right, when those ones are the most interesting to me, because if there's a physical thing of like taking a bag, why that's, to me, I wonder sometimes of those ones, it almost comes beyond paranormal, because you've got this different elements in that, like you said, where does the bag go, how did the helmet or how did that earphone that person was listening to, how did that get melted? Because you can't even explain it. Say for example they were taking drugs, or say for example there was a different like variation on them as an individual, but when you see a couple of people, and even in your instance when there's numerous people who see it all at once, but when there's a physical thing of like them putting on a crash helmet or putting a bag into it, that's when I find it like, well, that's gone a little bit beyond.
Well, there's a similar story to that attributed to Bluebell Hill, and I believe it was in the 30s, where a man took a young lady from outside the Lower Bell to, is it Bar?
Was that on the motorbike? Yeah, Burren. Yeah. I know. Yeah, I remember that story. Yeah. That was it. Yeah, because I think they associated Emily Trigg with that being. Was it a sidecar? I think he had. Or was it a sidecar? Or was it a motorbike? Wasn't it? Whatever it was. Yeah. Don't know why I felt sidecar.
And he turned it round.
That's right. Yeah.
She disappeared.
Yeah. So again.
And it's what that was before the bride.
This is the thing.
This was years before the bride's incident.
But this is the point I always make with these, is that whether you believe it or not, to that individual or individuals, it was real to them.
Yeah.
And those incidents are even more real, because you can't imagine if you explained to them and said, oh, it's not a ghost you saw, it was like some hallucination, or you were taking drugs or you were slightly drunk. To me, I'd be even worse. I prefer if you said it was a ghost, because then I'll be like, hang on a minute, am I really losing my marbles here? Because that was physical, that was something that happened, I can't explain it.
You take that with the bag one, right? So, paranormal law, the bag's going to disappear as well.
Yeah.
But what you would do, if she's gone from your car, the first thing you're going to do is open the boot.
You go through it.
Yeah.
Go through the bag. So...
But the girlfriend was screaming and absolutely terrified, so it's probably dealing with that.
But going back to people where they've seen reports of some people have actually run over someone.
Oh yes,
and they're so shocked that they reported it. But to them, they're so real that they've run that person over, that it's like, yes, who knows what was going on in their life? They might have had some physical. If we take away the paranormal aspect, maybe they were going through some trauma. Maybe they were drunk. Because this is the thing. Sometimes they don't ever talk about that side of things. I'm not saying it's not paranormal, but there are other factors that sometimes go into that. Either way, for them, they've witnessed something. That's felt. They felt that, and you see that you read these reports. They hit the bump. There's a physical attachment bump that even made it more. It wasn't they went through someone. It was they had a bang. They had everything that was associated with that. Well, you know what I mean?
I want it to be true.
Well, I do. I mean, I nail my colours to the mast on Bluebell Hill, and I'm very open about saying that there's no doubt, even in my mind, that I think there's a lot of unexplained stuff there. And when you bring up the extra evidence, I'm not really surprised on it. If that, in a complimentary way, I'm not really surprised, because I kind of feel actually, knowing the area as well as I do, and knowing the sort of stories that are in that, I'm kind of not surprised. In fact, the thing that surprised me, what I answered the question was, why isn't there more? Do you know what I mean? Why are we not discussing more about this?
Yes.
The guys that hit someone, do they ever talk about damage to the vehicle?
Not that I've seen.
From what I'm aware, no, because there's no. They just know that person, they pull over almost into, and it's actually quite a common story, not just with Bluebell Hill, but ones that they do hit someone. You always hear a bang, there'll always be normal rumble of the car or something like that, and they will be in such shock they'll pull over straight when and some are so shocked they don't want to get out because they've just disappeared. Do you know what I mean? And when they do, they'll look under the car and there's nothing there, and even then that's like a double shock. They're like, oh, okay, what's going on?
I'm just thinking validation of whether it's...
Yeah, because again, that would make sense, wouldn't it?
Nowadays, not so much with modern cars, but certainly 50s, 60s, they damage fairly easily. So if somebody's hit, even relatively slowly, but that would have been a relatively fast road, so some damage would have occurred. So the body's gone, did I hit someone? I don't know. But look, there's a dent in the bonnet. Or not.
Yeah, but you can also have somebody hit an animal, like a badger. And if you hit a badger, you certainly
know about
the car knows.
Absolutely,
But if you've not killed it,
it
could just have run off. So suddenly, you've got the feeling of hitting something, and you're looking around and there's nothing there. So
Very true.
could it potentially be something like that?
There is an instance on Bluebell Hill of a guy having that experience of hitting somebody, and this is in the days before mobile phones or anything like that, and he was so frightened he got out of the car, went to find what's rung his dad, got back into the
That's
car.
right, and his dad actually had to come
Yeah.
down and check underneath
Yeah.
the car for him because he was just
Yeah, it was in a terrible state. And there have been hoaxes as well.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, even I.
Hitchhiker
Yeah.
wise.
And there is one thing that I thought was really strange. In 1848, and you're going to smile at this, John Wildish, a butcher, was driving his cart along the hill when a woman hitchhiker who caused concern. Wildish dropped his whip and asked her to retrieve it, and when she did, he drove off very fast because he was particularly worried. And later that year, he came down that hill in the same cart, and the wheel came off at the very same spot and fell upon him and killed him.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's so interesting, isn't it? I want to open up. There's a really interesting theory that I wanted to propose to all of you because this was something. So in the link below, I'll put this down because actually this was something that I never really covered because I was always going to do it anyway, which was to do with the Bride video, which I'm very grateful for everybody watching actually because it's done really well. It's been a couple of years since that one's come out, but I did tease people at the end about my theory as to why there's also another thing that we need to take into consideration: the train tunnel. So, in a paranormal law sense, we know that opening up areas, opening up portals, opening up stuff like this, my theory was always that the moment that, so for people who aren't aware, there's a train tunnel that goes right through the heart of Bluebell Hill. Now, we know that's a little bit later on in date, but it's interesting how you could almost coincide a lot of the newer ones post that train tunnel opening up. And in a law sense, if you disturb certain sacred ground or certain areas of that, and what we also need to take into consideration is where that tunnel goes is actually passing the White Horse Stone to its right. It's also passing what would have been Smithies, which is a barrow. It's right next to that. So actually it's cutting through that. You've got Little Kitscotty on the left, Kitscotty on the both of those two on the left of that. You've also got the Coffin Stone that's there. I mean, it's right to look at it on a map. I would suggest people do this. This is where that train line's cutting through. And actually, if you find some images of it, it's right through the hill. Now, if you've got a law that suggests that it's a sacred site, etc., and you're digging through that, where there's been numerous accounts, etc., that's where I've always laid my money on, of like the modern sightings and everything else that's coincided with that is interesting because that actually justifies the law to a degree. You open up that sacred site and all of a sudden you've got this really
Also with the quarrying of the church,
absolutely,
it's the same sort of movement.
I don't expect people to agree with me on that, but because we know that it's been haunted before the
Yes.
railway.
Well, you hear about ghost, regardless of where you are. If someone's putting an extension on an old property,
Absolutely.
suddenly things start happening, don't they? It's common knowledge, isn't it?
And again, that's surrounded by sarsen stones, which we know have little bits of quartz in them, which are obviously spiritual in themselves. We know that we've got chalk as a resonator, and you've got those electric pylons as well.
Yeah.
It's just a catalyst for that. So any movement in the ground, any movement or disturbance is going to just rattle that in a law sense. We have to keep. I know I keep saying this to people, but just in case you don't believe, we have to look at it from how the law states what we would expect to see and what we'd expect to witness.
And of course, it's a very steep hill.
Absolutely.
So as you're coming down that hill, you're going to feel the change.
I mean, I'd love to, if I ever had the opportunity to go through that tunnel. You know what I mean? No, never happened, but just to see, because I bet there's, oh no, you know what I mean, but walk it, because I bet there's some people, like some track workers who've walked through that and gone, actually, because every time I've looked at it from the bridge side, you look through that, you think, it's actually quite a long, deep tunnel that's going through that. You know what I mean? That's a interesting bit of if people have ever felt something on that.
Well, even just walking up, we walked up there, didn't we? And even just walking up there, Sue and I, it had a feeling. We were on edge, but I don't think it was to do with it was to do with the speed of the cars that went up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're like, oh God, how can they be going so fast?
And not only that, with the railway tunnel, the soil that they took from that, they've only, from what I'm aware of, they've only placed it next to the site. So actually, they've actually, in a law sense, they've made it even worse. It's like, we're digging all this up and we're just going to chuck it. We don't care about it. We're just chucking it next to where it is.
Yeah.
All right, you know, okay. If you know, I mean, like I said, in the law sense, you're kind of like, well, you're disturbing that ground.
Yeah.
And we don't know how much energy was in that.
in the ground, yeah.
So yeah,
it's very important. If we are considering that stones can hold that energy, then why can't the ground itself? But what we did find, moving on a little bit, we found that there were some very similar stories in various different road ghosts.
Yes.
Even across to America, although there was never a monk. But there is very often a monk and a white lady and the hitchhiker. But on Stocksbridge, for instance, they see children.
Yeah.
And they hear children. And it's particularly around a pylon. And that for me says that's an energy thing.
Yeah.
But Joe, tell us about that.
There was about 8 miles away, as the crow flies, back, I can't remember the year, so it's in there. There was a terrible storm.
1838.
1838, terrible storm. Children were working in this mine. They mistook the noise of the thunder for an explosion in the tunnel, I believe, in the mine, and they tried to get out. But as they tried to get out, it flooded.
Right.
And a lot of them died. There were a lot that died.
There was 50, I think it was 28.
Yeah.
28 out of 50.
Children.
And obviously that's a classic case of Stocksbridge as well. I suppose we might as well merge the two actually, because I think it's actually quite a good comparison. So Stocksbridge bypass is a very famous case of where they built a bypass road.
Yeah.
And the moment they've done that, they seem to encounter a lot of activity, disturbance. And I genuinely feel that that's a very interesting thing that we come across quite a lot, and I'm sure you have as well before, is that the moment you disturb something, sacred or not, change that, it definitely rattles up. And Stocksbridge is quite well known because, like you said before, ring a roses, they've seen little children around pylons, they've seen monks, like you said before, they've seen white ladies, they've seen, there's even been notes of orbs and everything else. But it's funny how that coincided the moment they built that new road in there. Actually, whilst they were building it, more importantly as well, it's even more interesting. And again, this goes back to Bluebell Hill. I wonder if there might be former workers out there who might have been like, whilst we were building this on a certain night, I wonder if.
That was 1970s, I think.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
But the similarities
Yes.
are really fascinating because there's always a hitchhiker as well.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, Resurrection Mary, for example.
Yeah.
Chicago, is it? Chicago.
Yeah.
She hitchhikes back to the graveyard where she's buried, apparently.
That's right. Yeah, she's probably one of the most famous ones in America, really, from memory. Yeah.
So these hitchhiker ghosts seem to appear all over the world.
Yeah.
In one form or another, be it on a motorbike, some in a lift.
Yeah. Yeah. Are we all pretty much agreed then that we can say one thing we probably all agree on is that disturbance in a law sense definitely plays a massive part.
There's certainly evidence of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the one thing then, as we slowly wrap this up, because we flirt with Stocksbridge, and I'm sure at some point we'll probably, we might lay that over other things, because actually I think a lot of this stuff in terms of Bluebell Hill and everything else is definitely stuff we can always refer back to. In terms of things that we don't think relate to Bluebell Hill and those types of things, is there anything else? Is there anything through Bluebell Hill, even Stocksbridge, we can talk about as well, that we're not putting money on? Let's just sort of say the Emily Trigg thing. I know that it's quite
the repetitive stuff.
Yeah.
The Emily Trigg stuff is a terribly, terribly sad story.
It really is. Yeah.
And I think it was the BBC that reported it 6 years later they found her, when it was only 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, it was a terrible story.
Yeah.
And she's in an unmarked grave, and nobody really cares about her.
No, absolutely.
And she had a sad life. It's really sad. It's really sad. And I'm not sure that any sightings of her, other than what Pete might have seen, is
Well, I've no doubt
Yeah.
Pete saw what he saw. But
he did.
But
he did.
it may not have been her.
We don't know who it is.
What do you think then is probably, as we sort of slowly wrap this up then, so we've obviously discussed the history, we've discussed the law, we've compared it with Stocksbridge, and we've discussed obviously the fact that obviously there's more to Bluebell Hill, as probably some of you probably know anyway. What's the one thing individually then that you sort of feel is probably a no go with it, or even more?
Well, I'll start, and I've said this
Yeah.
on more than one occasion. I can't believe the story of the sighting of the bride.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you see what you would consider an apparition,
Mm-hmm.
they're all saying she was dressed as a bride, and she was not dressed as a bride at the time she passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is typical evidence of
mislabeling, maybe misrepresentation.
Gossip, or
or,
Well,
Yeah,
what
you
we're
know.
thinking is that there may be a druid ceremony.
Yes, and
in
I think
costumes.
we touched on that, but not in finer detail, because perhaps they saw druids.
Yes,
dressed,
yeah.
which you could.
You've got an example picture.
Yeah, we have.
We have an example picture.
Mm-hmm.
that you can put up.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And we were talking about that there are certain areas of the road where you could see them crossing to go to a
Yes.
certain area,
Yeah.
which means you could see somebody dressed in white in the road
And disappear
and
through
then
the hedge.
look again.
Yeah,
and they're gone.
Yeah. In fact, we were there on one particular investigation where actually we picked up some ambush going on with coaches and various things, didn't we? And we was able to find that story.
Yeah, I can imagine that being
But
quite a...
whilst we were there and walking up to where the stones steps are,
Yeah,
there was a man, and we looked again, and he was gone. And
but it's as quick as that.
And it was as quick as that.
Yeah,
And we said, well, where is he? And by the time we got to the top of the stairs and walked down, it was way off in the distance.
Yeah,
So that, if you're in a rainy, dark, foggy night, very often in the winter, these things are happening.
And perhaps you're hoping or expecting or
Yeah.
maybe you're going to see
Yes.
something, you're looking for something
Yeah.
to see.
But also,
Yeah.
don't forget, for people that live there, for local people, they will know all the little shortcuts,
Yeah.
all the
Absolutely.
little alleyways.
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
I think this is obviously where my channel, when I've obviously uncovered the paranormal stuff, is normally on my channel. I just put out the stories.
Yeah.
It's up to people to decide if Emily Trigg is the actual ghost.
yes.
If that's it.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah.
on my channel, I just have to lay out the story.
Yeah.
And then I'm always encouraging the people to sort of say, well, maybe we've seen it this, or maybe we've witnessed this and stuff. And I think that's interesting. I think the most important thing that we discovered in this case file is that we all agreed that Bluebell Hill, without a shadow of a doubt, is haunted to a degree of whatever we've made it
Yes.
out.
And let's not forget, there'll be plenty of stuff that isn't reported
Absolutely.
in any way, shape or form.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And the examples of reports that we have got only go back to late 1800s-ish.
Yes.
Really,
yeah.
when records were pretty
Yeah.
much...
Yeah.
So
But
there
there
would
are
have been
many,
stuff
many of
way
them.
before that.
And that would have been also at a time when, I hate to say it, this is a phrase my mum would have left to use, obviously being in a countryside, when it was countryside, you could bury a body out there and nobody would have known anyway.
Yeah.
But when it comes back to this whole sighting and the whole haunted thing, I think it's really interesting that we're all agreed that, like I said, definitely some sort of haunting. There's definitely a story behind it, and I
Yeah.
think there's a lot that still needs to be
Yes.
uncovered with it.
Yes.
I think
Teased out, I think
yeah,
is
absolutely.
what we say.
And I think we also have to bear in mind as well, there are probably lots of paranormal groups out there who probably either investigated Bluebell Hill or might want to investigate Bluebell Hill and Stocksborough bypass or similar sort of
Yeah,
thing.
and share it.
All we say is, do your research. Do the best job as you can in terms of like identifying what the investigation is that you do, because I'm just going to say this out. This is my own opinion, obviously not the rest. There are plenty of people out there who don't do enough research when they do their paranormal investigations.
Yes.
There's no disrespect to them, but I'm always I roll my eyes when I see people who are like, we've not really done your research. You've just gone out there and expected to see what you need to expect to see. And I think especially as people who are very passionate about Bluebell Hill itself and the stories, just do your research.
Yeah.
And come with it with like a partially open mind. Because if
Absolutely.
you see something that's interesting that doesn't denominate the common stories of Bluebell Hill, I find that more interesting.
Yeah.
I want to hear stories,
Yes.
you know, for example, that I can't pin to being necessarily a phantom hitchhiker or the Bluebell Bride or the hag.
Such a feat.
Well, this is exactly it. You know, I don't want that to be the case. I want to find those other ones that can tie into that.
Yeah. And there must be lots of people there that have got those stories.
Absolutely.
And lots of people that maybe still be seeing things.
Absolutely.
But if
Because
you do go, as we always say, be respectful of the
Yes.
residents and the environment.
Yes.
Absolutely. Because like we said before at the beginning of this, there are people who are probably still in living memory, people who have passed away there that might have been. And we, like I said, this is, I will keep saying it, as in the title, this is a case file. We are here to do some detailed research, to come at it from all our expertise of what we've witnessed and discovered, and to lay it out there for people so they can discuss it.
And there's a really interesting point here.
Go for it.
Bluebell Hill is being dug up.
What?
At the top.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
The
I didn't know
roundabout
that.
at the top
Oh, okay.
is being rebuilt. So there is more disturbance.
Ooh.
There you go. What a great way to end. Thank you so much for the wonderful Paranormal Inspectors team for joining us. Thank you so much for your time and your interest. Feel free to check them out in the link below. Thank you so much to everybody else out there who's been watching and taking involvement. Like I said, these are case files. These are really for the geeky people.
Yeah. And if anybody, sorry,
Go
Dan,
for it.
if anybody has got a story, please get in contact with us, because we'd love to explore the history and the circumstances around your story.
Yeah. Right, well, thank you so much, everybody. Take care, everybody. Really hope you enjoyed this wonderful in-depth
Sorry about
stuff.
the dog.
Yeah. By the way, if there's a little bit of noise in the background, it was a dog. Well, hopefully you'll let us off on that. But take care, everybody. See you later. Goodbye. Bye.
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 We've got one report here of somebody that actually stopped the car with his partner in the car as well, and he took her bag and put it into the boot and put that.
Yeah.
person in.
Okay. Yeah.
And that person disappeared. You know, I'm sure.
Is there any... So that...
We can say one thing we probably all agree on is that disturbance in a lot of sense definitely plays a massive part.
There's certainly evidence of it.
Yeah.
You know.
What's the one thing then, as we